My talk today is about something that not too many people talk about. It's about emotional intelligence. We're all talking about AI and ML and things like that. And I'd like just to share a little bit of experience and some thoughts that I have on stuff that is not so hardcore, I guess you could say. Just a tiny introduction. Recently I was in a meeting and, people were introducing themselves, and after I introduced myself, some guy came up to me and said, "Oh, you're very successful. I'd like to learn from you." And I kind of smiled and I thought for a minute, and I said to him, "Well, you haven't seen all of my failures." and I'd like to share today some of the things that I've learned along the way that perhaps some of you can glean from and avoid some failures. Just a little bit about myself, other than everybody knows I like to swim and stuff like that, but I also like to experiment and make bread. And so this is one of my experiments, a baguette. And then here's another one of my experiments, which is sourdough bread, which I really love that. And I've made different versions of it. And here's another thing that I really love to make pies. And so recently I've been making a lot of apple pies, and you learn a lot about trying and failing when it comes to making things like this. But anyways, let me go on to the heart of the talk, which is about what we're learning here and what we've learned in today so far. What have you been spending all of your time learning? I would suspect that a lot of folks here have spent time learning, test automation. We've heard talks on enterprise quality and agile and stuff like that. And I think that one of the things that's really important that we often forget is that you can actually learn stuff that magnifies all these technical things that we're learning. And we talk about flattening the curve, right? We've heard that before, flattening the curve. But I think our curve has been flattened in terms of our abilities if we don't learn things outside the technical realm. And so we start off, and you can see this is in dark green. We start off in basic capabilities, learning Java, maybe we learn Selenium and things like that through classes, self-study in university, and so on. And then we pile on top of that some work experience, right? And we are able to obtain some domain knowledge and technical expertise. And you'll notice each of these squares gets lighter and smaller. Then, if we can get to the level where we can actually solve problems and do some real thinking and apply some analysis skills, that takes us to the next level. And that's where a lot of the AI work is in solving problems. And the next level is really being able to apply these things that we learned and cross-domain and into new situations, which is why AI and ML are kind of struggling when it comes to autonomous vehicles, because there's just so many new situations that they can come across. And so I think it's really a no-brainer to work on our technical skills, right? But what I'm going to talk about today is EI and a way to really magnify these things that we learn by working with others and being able to take yourself from an individual contributor to a manager or a leader. So I say emotional intelligence is our multiplier, right? And so thing is, a lot of people talk about it, but they don't really know what it is or how we can practice it. People talk about communicating and collaborating, blah, blah, blah. We need to do this. Talk more, right? Share, listen, right? We need to work on our listening skills. Working together, that's all about agile, working in the same room, blah, 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 right? But really, how can we actually do this? And so emotional intelligence is defined in a couple different ways, 5 elements. And this is not my own work, but this other, you'll see the reference at the bottom here: self-awareness, being aware of ourselves and our feelings, as well as those that react to and our way of being and the way that we react to others, as well as regulating our feelings and understanding them and controlling them in some ways, and using that to motivate ourselves and others, as well as, I think Alvin mentioned empathy, right? Really being able to step in someone else's shoes, and the social skills that you can accumulate all these things into one. But let me put this in a different context, into a model, not the agile testing quadrants, but an EI quadrants, right? And so the first step, as I said, is being aware of your own state and how it impacts others, as well as others and how they impact you. And self-management is the next thing, right? Really thinking about, well, if you're aware of yourself, how can you regulate or control or influence your own reactions to others? And in those reactions, make sure that they align with your own goals and your own values. And then the next step, you notice on the bottom left quadrant, in terms of understanding the mood of others and really hearing what they say. And the bottom right is really taking that to the next level and being able to express ideas clearly to others, being that you understand where they're coming from, also being able to handle conflict. And this is where the empathy comes in, right? Using sensitivity to others' feelings to manage your interaction with them. And when I think about some of the failures that I've had, I would say that a lot of them stem from not understanding these things in this quadrant and reacting in the wrong way, saying the wrong things. Has anybody ever said, oh, I wish I could take that back? Shoot, I shouldn't have said that, right? And so I think that everybody has been in that situation before. The thing about EI is, a lot of people think that it's innate. We're naturally able to work with people or naturally not able to work with people. And I think that that's false, that we can work on many things in our, just as we do trying to learn C#, we can learn EI as well. And the first thing is what I call anti-meditation. I'm sure that a lot of folks here, maybe some, do meditation, which means that you try to empty your mind, right? You sit there, and I've tried it. It's very, very difficult. You try to empty your mind, basically. And so what I call anti-meditation, which is not empty your mind, but really focus on taking time out to think about how you reacted to certain situations in the day, and really take a look at your own triggers, things that upset you, and why they upset you, right? Or why they made you angry, or why you got sad about certain things when somebody said a certain thing. And so just giving some examples, maybe you're turned off by somebody's gestures, the way that they carry themselves. You think that they're cocky, or maybe somebody doesn't speak loud enough and it kind of irritates you. All of these things, if you notice them throughout the day, then you can kind of think about understanding where that reaction comes from, understanding where that feeling comes from, and think about, well, geez, I don't have to be that way, right? And so I've mentioned this to a lot of folks sometimes, where I really work on being self-aware in my reactions to the situation. And a lot of times I imagine a little man on my shoulder talking to me, and he's saying to me, Phil, you don't have to be angry about this. You can choose another way. And same thing with being sad or whatever, right? I sometimes I imagine that I have this guy on my shoulder, and there he is on the screen there. He's talking, hey, stop. You don't have to do that. And so I invite each of you to think about that in examining your own reactions to your coworkers, to your family members, and how you can possibly achieve a better outcome. Lastly, I want to share one of my favorite books, and it's very related to EI. Many folks don't recognize that Lincoln was one of our greatest presidents in the United States, and managing different divides and political groups and all of these issues at hand. And one of the things I got out of this book was that he used to get angry, of course, like we all do. And he used to write, say, a scathing letter to those. And back in those days, they all communicated by letters, and then they had to transmit these letters by horseback, right? And so he would write letters to some of the generals that were working with him, and some of them would be quite scathing and critical. And he would write letters, and then he would stick them in his desk drawer and leave them there for a week and come back later to them. And what he found was that most of the time, a lot of the times, he would either have to change that letter or not send it at all. And I've used this quite a few times in emails. Sometimes you get angry, or you want to walk into somebody's office and talk about something in a unpleasant way, perhaps. And sometimes I've written emails and I thought, geez, maybe I need to think about this a little bit. And I'll just save it as a draft. And a week later, I look at the draft and say, geez, I don't really need to send this. And I encourage each of you to think of that as a way to self-regulate and be aware of what you're doing and how you're interacting with others. I think it's one of those soft skills that is not taught, and I hope that you can take that away from today. That's the end of my talk. I know it's really quick, and hopefully, if you want to talk about making bread, please contact me, or if you want to talk about other things, it'd be great. Let me close up maybe I'll just turn it over to Bhushan, and let Bhushan, you're going to close up with talking about opening up the conference, right?